Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch, being joined by Devin, Hasson, and David Wolman. It is just past 11:15 on a Monday. Hope everybody had a happy Easter. We got a little catching up to do, guys. It's been a couple weeks, and boy, it's been a busy couple weeks since we've last spoke. So, yes, obviously a lot of catch-up to do with respect to the high school soccer playoffs. We are entering the regional semifinal round this week, so 3 rounds in the books over the last couple weeks. We've got, 10 teams left in our coverage area, so congratulations to the following. Congrats on the boys' side to Allen, Sachse, Frisco Wakeland, Frisco, and Celina. And then on the girls' side, congrats to Marcus, Flower Mound, Frisco Wakeland, Frisco Memorial, and Celina. So we've still got a pretty healthy contingent hanging around as we enter the regional tournament phase of the postseason. And guys, let's just kind of make sense of some of the major talking points over the last couple weeks. I can start with what I think was at least one of the more notable results through these first 3 rounds. When you have 2 of the best teams in a region, arguably the 2 best teams at the 6A level in the Metroplex square off much earlier than one would expect. It's going to be notable, especially when it includes an upset over a previously undefeated number 1 ranked team in the state, and that is Flower Mound 3, Prosper 1. A score that at first glance, might have, furrowed a few brows and raised a few eyelids and whatnot. But when you see that Flower Mound defeats Prosper 3-1, when you think of what Prosper had done up to this point, it's going to be a pretty jarring result. Prosper hadn't allowed multiple goals all season. They hadn't trailed in a match all season. So to have your season end in a 3-1 loss, that's quite the jarring result. And having been there on the sidelines at McKinney ISD Stadium that night, it's not really much of a shock because you look at how the match played out, and it played out as you would expect a 3-1 soccer match to play out. Flower Mound controlled this one pretty much the entire way, with the exception, listen, Prosper had a few moments here and there. They were able to generate a few chances, but nothing really substantial. But Flower Mound, everything that you look for as far as how a team, controls a soccer match, everything from time of possession to shots on goal, corner kicks generated and whatnot. All of it favored Flower Mound in pretty decisive fashion, and yet they were still clean. They were still down 1-0 heading into the final 15 minutes of this match. No matter what sort of advantage they had in shots on goal, they just couldn't finish. And you're just wondering if soccer can be a weird game sometimes. You can get outplayed in a lot of respects, but still hang on and win 1-0. So, with Flower Mound, you're thinking, well, just maybe it's not their night. And then they were able to get a free kick goal with about 10 minutes left in regulation, courtesy of Sidney Becerra, and that just kind of triggered the floodgates because they go to overtime, tied 1-1, and then Flower Mound gets 2 more goals. Riley Baker finishes a goal from set up by freshman Emma Hong, and then in the second overtime frame, 30 seconds in, Riley Baker sets up Tatum Beck for a goal. So just like that, this Prosper team that has not faced anything remotely close to a circumstance like this, they're down 3-1, and that came with 30 seconds into the second overtime frame. So now you've all of a sudden you're staring up at a 2-goal deficit, and you've got 9 minutes left in the second overtime. So a spot that Prosper had not been in all season long. But fair play to Flower Mound because you were thinking for a while there that this was looking like a match where, despite being able to generate so much more than your opposition, that just might, because again, you don't get points for time of possession or shots on goal. You actually have to score goals. So it was very fitting, though, to see them at least cash in there late and get a, certainly one of the program's, signature victories, since last winning state. And now they're on to the regional semifinals. They've won 9 in a row. So ever since that loss earlier in district to Hebron, which was, I think we've mentioned in the past, their first loss since, I believe it was March 2019, they've started looking a bit more like that team that was undefeated heading into the playoffs. playoffs last season before the COVID shutdown happened. During that 9-match winning streak, they've outscored their opponents 26-4. And, I mean, yeah, again, holding Prosper, which you look at the gaudy numbers that Prosper put up this season and just the job that, players like Caitlin Giametta, who had their lone goal against Flower Mound, Hadley Morell, a team that entered the playoffs with a goal differential of more than plus 110. And, to get one goal allowed is, it really speaks to just the depth on that Flower Mound backline and just the job that they did, slowing down what had been, arguably the most prolific offense at the 6A level for girls soccer this year. Prosper was 23-0 prior to that loss. And obviously, getting bounced in the third round is certainly not the way that they envisioned this thing ending. They're still going to have a pretty healthy contingent coming back next season, but you never know when that opportunity is going to arise. It's a similar situation to what Flower Mound was thinking, at this time last year when they didn't get to go to the playoffs despite being undefeated. And you're wondering, well, crap. Are the Stars going to align like they almost were at this point last year? So it's nice to see them, though, this postseason getting a chance to kind of make amends for not getting a postseason last year. And they're headed to the fourth round. There's a chance we are 2 wins away from a potential Mound showdown for a spot in the regional, and not in the regional, in the state semifinals, because on the other half of the 6A Region 1 bracket, you have Marcus that is still hanging around. Marcus, which was able to punch its ticket to the fourth round by knocking off another team from 6A, Hebron. They beat them 1-0 on Friday. It was a PK goal by Maddie Reynolds about 10 minutes in that wound up being the difference in this one, and it's just wild because you look at the job that Hebron has done up to this point, and Marcus has just been their kryptonite. Against everyone else on their schedule, they've averaged nearly 3 goals per match. And they've lost all 3 times that they've played Marcus, and all 3 have been shutout losses. This offense that beat Flower Mound, who we just talked about, that's the team that beat Flower Mound earlier in the season. They beat them 3-0. That just shows you the ceiling that this Hebron team is capable of. But Marcus has had the answer every single time. That defense with Caroline Hilliard, Grace Martin, Kennedy Wise, Chloe Adams, they got a freshman in goal, Bree Russell. They've had the recipe for slowing down what's been one of the more high-octane offenses in the area down the stretch. Hebron's a young team, so they're better. Their best days are likely still a couple years off. They were able to score a pretty impressive win over Allen to kick off the postseason in the first round. So again, the year is pointing up on Hebron, but this Marcus team, though, they're in a good way right now. They've won 8 in a row. This is the 3rd time in the last 4 postseasons that they've advanced to the regional semifinals. And yeah, like I said, if both them and Flower Mound can take care of business on Tuesday, then we could very well get Flower Mound versus Marcus in the regional final, which that obviously doesn't need much explanation. That should be absolute fireworks if it in fact materializes. So big things happening for Louisville ISD through the first few rounds of the postseason. David, we can talk about another Louisville ISD school in the Colony that is not playing right now. They got eliminated, but obviously still a productive postseason for the Colony. So just some parting thoughts on the Colony and what they were able to accomplish this postseason.
Yeah, just a very successful, not only postseason, but the regular season for these guys as well, too. Mm-hmm. And this is still staying on the boys' side right here. They won their first district championship since 1998. Yeah. And then this year they defeated Liberty in penalty kicks in the first round to advance to the second round of the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. Mm-hmm. So, this is a team that they accomplished so much. That they only had 1 regulation loss this year, and it's going to be hard to replace the 9 seniors that they have on their team because they just set the bar for this program going forward. So obviously the expectation going forward for Lee Woodall and his program is going to be pretty high. But I mean, it's not only the 9 seniors but everybody else on this team as well too. You got a very fast forward and Blake Galvez. He can run up the field very fast. Brian Carrillo, who's their sophomore goalkeeper right there. In the opening round against Liberty, when they went to PKs, he had 2 diving saves right there in the shootout right there. So that was, it's a big factor, and he's been clutch for them all season. But in Hagen Weish, he's one of their top goal scorers on their team with 8 goals this year. So he's going to be their top returning goal scorer next year. He's only just a sophomore. But so they got some talent just definitely in the underclassmen. But as far as these 9 seniors, they're going to be not going to be easy to replace. especially you look at Elijah Elias. He's one of their captains. He takes a lot of their free kicks right there. He's got 13 goals on the season, and 2 of them they were on penalty kicks against R.L. Turner. So, his leadership's going to be missed. Yosmar Reyes, in the last regular season game against Denison, he had a hat trick as well, too. So 13 goals for the season. So he's going to be missed. Franklin Corona, he takes a lot of their corner kicks. He finished with 7 goals. 3 of them came against in the regular season finale against Denison. Mm-hmm. So he's going to be missed as well, too. So, 9 players on a boys varsity soccer team is a lot to replace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but the thing that Waddell told me about these guys is they're a very close knit group of guys. Everybody just likes each other on the team. So, obviously it's going to be, huge, holes to fill out there, but, just even against like Liberty, to come out there, even though they're in 4th place in that district, that's a tough Frisco district right there. Mm-hmm. So, to come out there with that one was huge. And then, obviously, R.L. Turner wasn't, probably their best game, but they showed a lot in the last 15 minutes, just to make it close. They had so many opportunities, and it was 3-2, it was tied at halftime, 1-1, and then R.L. Turner scored 2 goals. Within 5 minutes of each other in the second half to go up 3-1, and then Elias he got a second PK of the game, so that made it 3-2, and then the Colony just threw out everything that they had. Yeah. Header here, here's a kick over there, corner kick over here, everything that they do they just couldn't finish. So, but, tough ending for them. You could just see the emotions on their face. There's just, they realized it was their last time on the field right there. So, it was, my heart kind of broke for those guys. I got a chance to talk to them, just great gentlemen, and they're going to do great things in life right there. But I really like, though, what they did this season.
Yeah, so obviously a very, very productive postseason for Louisville ISD, which, it's nothing new. They've always got, whether it's Flower Mound, Marcus, Hebron, in this case the Colony, they've always got teams that are making serious runs in the playoffs. Same for Frisco ISD, Devin. This is just old hat for Frisco ISDs. They've got a total of 4 teams bound for the 4th round of the playoffs. Like we mentioned earlier, Wakeland and Frisco High on the boys' side, Wakeland and Frisco Memorial on the girls' side. So wherever you want to start with Frisco ISD, Devin, but just size up another impressive postseason thus far for Frisco ISD.
Well, and I hate to say it's old hat for Wakeland, but this is a Wakeland. The boys program, for instance, it had made 4 straight trips to the state championship game, and obviously winning titles in 2017 and 2018, and they're back in the regional semifinals. The girls were state champions in 2018, and so they're not. This is not unfamiliar territory for them. It is for Frisco Memorial,
absolutely.
Though. This is just their 3rd year as a varsity program. They earned a shot at the district championship. That was one thing to check off the list. Won their first playoff match, and here they are in the regional semifinals. It's just a really impressive run. You never know how teams are going to handle being in that playoff atmosphere for the first time, especially when close matches come down. They were tested by McKinney North in the opening round. That was a scoreless draw. That went to a shootout that Memorial was able to pull out. And it's that defense. They during the course of the district season, they allowed 7 goals in 18 matches. Mm-hmm. They had 12 shutouts. In 3 playoff matches, they've allowed 1 goal.
Wow.
And that was in a 4-1 win, which was, it's maybe they just kind of let off the gas a little bit. But, they got goal scorers with Ava Kohlberg and Laney Munch and Brooke Bollinger. It's a very solid team. And again, they're just they're rewriting history every match throughout, every round of games. And really interested to see what they could do. I mentioned the experience aspect of it, but these are girls that have been playing their entire lives. We mentioned the strength of Frisco ISD. Mm-hmm. These girls and boys do not start playing once they get to their freshman year of high school. These are people who have played select club level ball since the time they were young, and that's reflected in the playoff success. And it's still conceivable that you have a all Frisco ISD regional final because Frisco boys are still also very much alive and playing against a Longview team that's actually made the history of their own advancing to the regional semifinals for the first time. So, just given their track record, it's hard to bet against Frisco ISD in the playoffs.
Then, when you look at, again, Louisville ISD, Frisco ISD, again, they're no strangers to success in the playoffs. You can talk about a few, I guess, individual schools that are still kicking and still alive in the playoffs. The Allen boys are now bound for the fourth round, I guess, for the second time, and I guess so I've decided I'm not even going to consider like 2020 when I say like I'm just going to refer to it as like the last two postseasons now going forward, because you could say like second time in the last 3 years, but that makes it sound like they didn't get there last year and whatnot. So I'm just going to start referring to it as postseason.
I just said Wakeland boys made 4 straight.
Yeah.
So
So with Allen, they were headed to the fourth round, and the story with Allen right now has been, well, basically since their last loss, which came on March 1st, a 1-0 setback to McKinney Boyd, who wound up going on to win that district. Allen's offense has just caught fire. They're averaging 4.3 goals per match since that loss, and they've maintained that average more or less in the playoffs, averaging 4 match in the playoffs. That includes 4-1 over Flower Mound in the first round, 5-1 over Grand Prairie in the second round, and then they took down a rival in 5-6A Prosper 3-1 in the third round. Sam Presser, who I believe last time we told you we were speaking, just kind of previewing some of the matchups I had mentioned. He's one of the among the top goal scorers in the area, and he has not missed a beat. He has 5 goals within Allen's 3 playoff matches, and he's had plenty of help, obviously, with Matthew Sanchez, Grayson Golgert, Brian Vallejo, among the others who have contributed. They've just got a lot of they execute those set pieces really, really nice. A player like Golgert, who's usually the tallest player on the field, they do a good job putting the ball on frame for him to get ahead on it and find the back of the net. And then that defense, capped in the very back by one of the top goalkeepers in the area with Jackson Levitt. Just a program that's in a really good way right now. They actually get a home match against Keller on Tuesday, and it's a chance for Allen to with a win there that would make them just the second team in program history to advance to the regional finals. So some high stakes on Tuesday as Allen squares off against Keller in the regional semifinals. Over in Region 2, Devin, talk a little Sachse. They're still alive and kicking as Sachse gets ready to take on Cypress Bridgeland at a game that's Tuesday, 7 o'clock, all the way out in Mejia. So what do you make of what Sachse has pulled off up to this point?
I think Sachse gets a little bit overshadowed by some of the powers in this area. Mm-hmm. And I had actually a couple of people talk to me on social media about, Sachse. I said, Sachse is a perennial playoff team. I mean, this is a team that was in the regional semifinals 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. They're in the regional finals back in 2017. So, they're no stranger to making runs in the playoffs. But, I was able to see them on Friday against Mansfield Lake Ridge, and they pull out 1-0. I mean, they just find a way. It's just the first game they opened the playoffs against Mesquite, they won 2-0 in a game that was basically scoreless until the final 15 minutes when Sachse was able to score one with about 15 minutes left and the other with basically the last minute as Mesquite was pushing up. So that was basically a 1-goal game for the most part. Same thing with the Bryan in the area finals. It was a 3-2 game. And then obviously the 1-0 last Friday. But, they've got goal scorers. D'Alessandro Rios was the one who netted the game winner last week. But Cooper Tees come up with some really big games. Elias Robles, Ethan Sampson. But what impressed me was their defense on Friday. Carlos Vasquez, their goalkeeper, made some tremendous saves. A couple, within 10 yards. I mean, he just read the play. Reese Spears is their captain back there. He's playing through an injury, but he's one of those guys that just always knows where to be back there. It's as good as Vasquez was. That defensive line with Reese Spears and Haroon Spahalik and Eric Martins and Derek Ramirez, they blocked a lot of shots in the box as well. So, just a very heady group, and they're just a solid all-around unit. And they got the opening goal, and I believe Coach Jake Brule told me after the game that in the playoffs in the last 9 years, only one time when Sachse hasn't scored first have they been beat. So if they score the first goal, they've lost one time in 9 years, basically. So they got that first one in the 18th minute on Friday, and they just settled into their game plan. They don't drop back into a shell; they're still attacking, but that defense is so solid, and they got enough playmakers to keep the other team honest from pressing too much. So we'll see what happens. I mean, this is a Sachse group again that I think kind of flies under the radar, so to speak, and it's kind of hard to gauge. Also in Region 2, when you get to these later rounds. I mean, they play Bryan in the area round. Yeah. They play Bridgeland this week, so it's kind of hard to compare them to other Metroplex teams. But, it's a team that knows how to win, and I'm really curious to see what they can do here these next couple of rounds.
Yeah, still got Sachse kicking around, still got Allen kicking around over in 6A. Let's dip down to 4A for a second. You want to talk about some of the silliest playoff scores that you'll see? Let's talk Celina, a school that is, their tradition, but their history in soccer is very brief. These are two programs, the boys and the girls, who are both in the regional semifinals. These are two programs that have not been around for a long time. In the boys' case, this is just their third varsity season, just their second ever playoff run. The girls, though, had been around for, I guess, what was it, like 5 or 6 years or so. But but both teams have already, had their deepest playoff runs ever this postseason by advancing to the regional semifinals. And the girls have gotten there in just torrid, dominating, devastating fashion. And they have outscored their first 3 playoff opponents 43-0. That is scores of 18-0 in the first round against Ferris, 13-0 in the second round against North Dallas, and then last week on Friday, 12-0 against Caddo Mills in the regional quarterfinals. And that was kind of, those scores aren't, out of place when you look at their entire body of work this season. The games that they've won this season have, for the most part, been kind of like that. It's a program that has eclipsed double-digit goals, I think, 15, 17 times this season. It's a lot. They can, when the ball is moving piece to piece out there, then they can put together some pretty nice stuff, and it helps to have one of the most prolific goal scorers in the entire country. If you're just going off of just the number of goals that she has scored, Taylor Drzeski is up to 109 goals on the season as we begin to, I guess, maybe look ahead down the road to all area voting, that offensive player of the year, forward of the year, however it settles. That is certainly a name to keep an eye on, as she has 109 goals on the season. She had 5 against Caddo Mills. She's up to 19 in 3 playoff matches. It's impressive. Every time they were down in the, they spent basically the entire match against Caddo Mills in that attacking third, and just about every chance resulted in either whether it was a goal. If it wasn't a goal, if it was batted away, it usually results in a corner kick, which then leads to a goal. They just, they're just ruthless. And this is, again, when things are working in their favor, that team they can score with the best of them at the 4A level. And it wasn't just Taylor on Friday. Emma Short, Mia Norman, Lexi Tweet both had 2 goals apiece. Ashlyn Vana, who takes a lot of their corner kicks, she had 4 assists off corner kicks alone in that. They can pile up some numbers for sure this season. And but the bugaboo has been, they are not undefeated. They've had some losses, and at least in the case of district play, they did finish second in their district. They were not able to get over the hump against Melissa. They've run into teams that are at least on par with them, if not maybe a little bit better as far as just overall talent goes. And when that happens, they've yet to show that they can kind of translate just that high octane firepower against a top level opponent. And part of that is, when you play, just because of the nature of 4A soccer, you see, when you beat so many teams, 10-0, 12-0, and whatnot, you just don't have enough instances on your schedule when you're truly getting pushed. A lot of those moments can be pretty new to you as far as knowing how to handle that and whatnot. So we will see kind of going forward, because just looking over the bracket, the blowout time is done, and it looks like, at least heading forward, that for however much longer these Celina girls are in the postseason, that there's going to be, they've got nothing but state-ranked opponents left pretty much the rest of the way, and that starts Tuesday against number 9 ranked Bullard, who's lost just 2 matches all season. So it'll be interesting to see, for a team that has been in such a groove offensively, if they can translate that now to facing an upper echelon opponent. Meanwhile, the boys are still kicking alive, and as well on the in 4A. They're in the regional semifinals at just their second ever playoff run. Again, this is just a third-year varsity program. Their scores have been a bit more traditional in the sense that they beat Sunnyvale 3-1. They beat North Dallas in the second round 3-0, and then they beat Athens in the regional quarterfinals 2-1. Trent Hamblin got the ball rolling there against Athens. He plus Edson Torres, Antonio Cantaron, and Marcos Arana have really keyed a very big year for the Bobcats. Who, I mean, they're rolling right now. They've won 14 of their last 15. They're already in the fourth round as a third-year varsity program. So despite the soccer in Celina still being in kind of its infancy, it's still it's two programs that are very much on the rise as this budding soccer hotbed out in Celina, Texas. So yes, the Bobcats and the Lady Bobcats are bound for the fourth round, and we will see what is in store. Was there anything else y'all wanted to add before we get out of here? Then we will call it a day, folks. So yes, that will wrap it up for this episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. We'll be back next week to talk more soccer, maybe dip our toes in a little bit of baseball and softball as well. So until then, folks, you enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to y'all later.